Um, First of all, just say hello to each one, and thank you so much for the Michael and Catherine and the rest of the board behind it for organizing this workshop in premiere. I would say for the first time, probably. I don't know. Maybe there were other workshops that we don't know, but this is like I feel like just a small unity between ourselves organizing this. All of the Orthodox people living in Ireland, the Orthodox faithful, and the one who are interested into the Orthodoxy as well. So it's a very important sign of unity, which I'm amazed about. Um, Going forward, I just want to ask you if there any problem with my connection, if you don't hear me well, because I don't want to talk alone, and if you don't see me well as well, because of the light or so, just please let me know in the message or so, or if you can just say it, I don't mind. So I before I start with my contribution, I'm just gonna say just a few words about me. So Christian is my name. My mom serving as a priest into the Romanian Orthodox Church in Ireland since 2006. I came in Ireland, since 2016. I came in Ireland in 2006, and since then, Ireland is kind of my second home. Why am I interested into specifically into the Irish saints, and why do I have probably this is because about 10 years ago, sorry, I was just looking up on the names and the multitude of the names of the saints in Ireland. So I couldn't believe that it was real or not. So it was a point for me to start looking into Irish saints and into the heritage of Ireland. And that led me up to a path of discovery more and more about the spirituality. Obviously, when first coming into Ireland, you are probably facing the mythology of Saint Patrick, Saint Brigid, the Celtic traditions, and then you could be in a way, also in comma, corrupted by that because it's very attractive. But if you're looking for the truth behind it, you can find more and more. So this is my journey now, which I'm still, walking into it, and I'm really glad that I can discover more and more, and because I can discuss about this. It's kind of a small little touch and love that I have for the Irish, the person coming from Romania, an Orthodox country as well, having many saints in there. But then, if I'm here for a long time now, and if I feel this attraction, I think I opened kind of my mind and my heart to it, and I'm every day nearly. I'm passing. I'm sorry. I'm traveling along the saints. I'm traveling the Irish saints. I'm traveling with their tradition with their heritage that they left for this island, especially the one as protectors, which is Saint Patrick, Brigid, and Columkill. Um, from the beginning, I will apologize if we go to my contribution about my poor pronunciation. Part of it in English and probably part of it some names in Irish which I cannot spell. And I would also like to say about the three subjects that I want to talk a little bit. And then those subjects are just a personal view, a personal contribution, and a personal approach of Saint Brigid. One of them being related to the name, which we can find a different pronunciation. It's either Brigid, Brigid, or so. So I'm just going to discuss about that a little bit, just just from the beginning. And then a small subject is very interesting to me as someone coming outside Ireland, which is called I Knew That about Saint Brigid. And then at the end, I've kind of looked after some early sources and also a bibliography and some online articles that I found very handy in relation to Saint Brigid. So how I'm going to do this is just I'm going to share my screen. I have all of them, 3 subjects, then in 3 PDF documents. I'm going to share the screen with you. I can also, if that's okay, and if you want, I can share those documents via the WhatsApp group or any other place that you want to have them after. I'm not an author of these documents. I was trying to collect from different kind of sources. So I'm gonna go with the first one. So about the Saint Brigid, some little things about the name and place names related to her. So give me just 1 second there. Okay, good. So I've just put in here the first things that, you know, the feast of Saint Brigid, which is the 1st of February, and the years that she lived. So according to the historians, which I will relate more, it's 451, very close to the coming of Saint Patrick in Ireland, and 525. Then just because I found in different sources Saint Brigid called it Brigid or Bridget or Brid or Brigid. So all of them, they're valid, you know, in use. I know, probably depending on the people from they're coming. Now in Irish meaning, Saint Brigid, the really exalted one. And they said on the group, Saint Brigid is called also the Mary of the Gale, or Mary of the Irish, and in the end the patroness, one of the patron of the patrons of Ireland. And also I found a connection on some text from some English text saying about Brigid name as coming from bride as well. So I was just making some references about the name related to Saint Brigid. I got here to Kildare, which means the Church of the Oak, probably the first monastery in Ireland, and also something related to Kildare, which are the Kildare Gospels or Book of Kildare, a 12th century manuscript scribed by a scholarship named Gerald Cambresis or Gerald of Wales. I've made again. I've made some small little notice there about himself, describing this Book of Kildare as being the work of the angels. So in pagan times, Kildare was marked by a sacred tree, an oak, belonging to the Druids, and it was a pagan sanctuary with a perpetual fire in it. That's why sometimes we can see some representation of Saint Brigid holding a fire in her arms. Okay, so she was the abbess. The abbesses of Kildare shared the rule of community with abbots and bishops, often more than one at a time. So we have the reference here from the Annals of Ulster. And again, what we see there related to Kildare is that the position of the bishops seems to have been occasionally subordinate to the abbesses, which is very, you know, unusual for our times. And then may have been more than one bishop at certain times. This has happened until 1111 at the reforming synod of Rath-Bressel, when Kildare became one of the 5 major Irish sees, when they were kind of splitting into the dioceses. So again, at the end of this document, we have the remark that in 2020, Henry of London, a papal legate and Archbishop of Dublin, supposedly ordered the perpetual fire in honor of Brigid to be put out, this asserting his control of the community. So just a little bit, a few things related to the Brigid name and Kildare as well. So I'm just going to go to my next contribution there, which is a subject called "I Never Knew That About Saint Brigid." So again, around the little community now established in the Kildare, soon this is like some historical context when the settlement of Kildare happened. Very important to know how this happened and what was the contextual when Saint Brigid formed the monasteries in Kildare, both for nuns and for monks, and the rule that she established for them to live in there. And then he's saying here that the monks there and the nuns lived after Saint Brigid's rule, and they founded a school which speedily rivaled the famous school of Arma. Now, I'm not very agree with that rival because there's not such a term in orthodoxy. I would say more probably being on the same kind of level with the school in Arma, which was the see or the bishop see in Ireland after Saint Patrick. And also a very nice reference that I found here is that the Kildare school was specialized in artistic metalwork, so that from Brigid's family originated one of the strongest impulses to Christian native art. Beautifully ornamented chalices, patens, book covers, braziers, bells, all of them supplied from Kildare to all the churches in Ireland. A thing that we can see today in the history museums, especially in Dublin as well, that they have this habit to ornate all of the objects belonging to the church, being them chalices or being book covers or croziers. All of them, they're very in detail, very nice, ordained. And then the text that we have here, the next reference to Kildare is that at the end, before her death, St. Brigid was the mother abbess of 13,000 of nuns. That's a huge number if this is supposed to be real. So I don't know, but probably because of the large place that she had there in Kildare, being granted by the King of Leinster, and taking in consideration that there were two monasteries, one for nuns and one for monks, I would say that it was probably very close to reality. So starting there with, I never knew that about Saint Brigid. It's related to how Saint Brigid was accepted or how she was known outside Ireland as well, because we know very well that Irish monks were so important missionaries on the continent, and they brought with them the traditions and the spirituality which they gather here in Ireland, all over in Europe, on the continent. So as we're gonna go down to this document, then we're just gonna go to some of the parts where Saint Brigid is venerated. So we know very well that according to the legend, 3 Irish knights who set out for the Holy Land in 1283, sorry, carried with them the head of Saint Brigid, and unfortunately they couldn't get into the Holy Land, so their journey ended up in Lumiere, which is located now within the municipality of Lisbon in Portugal. There is a church there, which are holding the relics of Saint Brigid, and Saint Brigid is venerated in Portugal, in Lisbon. Next one will be in Scotland. When in the 16th century you have a king, which is called Nechtan, who offered this land of Abernathy to God and to Saint Brigid. And then you see, I'm making here a small little star commentary with more details in relation to that talking about, because some of them, they're very unknown to me and probably unknown to yourself as well. Then we have France and Paris, where Saint Brigid was invoked into an ancient litany belonging to the 8th century, composed by the scholar Alcuin, a litany which was used by Charlemagne, Karl the Great, and it was recited by him as a part of his daily prayer. Now, a very interesting one I found there in Belgium, sorry, in the Cathedral of the Saint Saviour and Saint Donat, which is a Roman Catholic in Bruges. So we have here a small little history about Gunhild, or Gunelda, which was a sister of King Harold, the last Anglo-Saxon king, which fled to Belgium after her brother died in a battle. And among the valuables she took with her was a cloak. And I have here the asterisk sign saying some little thing about the description of this cloak, or this cloak, which is measuring about 20 by 25 inches, being a dark crimson color and covered all over its face with tufts and curly wool, resembling the fleece of a sheep. And then by tradition is saying, you know, if you're trying to source this back in history, it's saying that in 1051, after having a fight with his son-in-law, King Edward the Confessor, was exiled from England to take refuge in Flanders. And then his sons, Harold and Leofwine, Gunhild's brothers, the princes took the garment of Belgium, went to Ireland, where they stayed with Dermot, King of Leinster. So probably here is where we have the connection, how this garment got into Belgium, into this cathedral. And then what I've found, there are things from 2012 and one from St. Bride's in Fleet Street, which is probably the Christian worship in London. So then also I gave some, on the asterisk sign, some little bit of explanation that probably this place, this worship place, this old church has been found, it's finding his foundation in the 6th century or later 7th century by either Saint Brigid herself or by the Irish monks, who were kind of, you know, again, as I said, missionary on the continent, and in Scotland and Britain as well. Then some other devotion to Saint Brigid in Europe, here according to a priest called James McGilgan, which was a Roman Catholic and historian, is known very well in France as well as being Abbé McGogan. Sorry about the pronunciation again. So he's found some evidence by an office of 9 lessons in her honor found in several breviaries in Europe. So I've listed here all of them. I'm not gonna go through them as well. I can, share the document after this. There are quite a few. So we can find references in France, in Germany, in England, also in Italy as well, in the regular canons of the Lateran. And I put a link here for more information as well. Again, in Italy, we have the great, well-known writer Vincenzo Tommasini, and in his list of memorials to Brigid of Kildare, this is very important, a reference to Saint Brigid, because he describes the confusion of dedication. There's a chapel there, which now is honoring the Saint Brigid of Sweden. So this could be a very quick fusion between the two Brigid. But the archaeologists found out that the fresco depicting this Brigid is earlier than the 14th century. So it's earlier than the Brigid of Sweden, which lived later on. So I was just saying about the confusion between Brigid of Sweden and Brigid of Ireland, and then about the Piasco Chapel, which is to be found in province of Cuneo in Italy. And I hope I'm not repeating myself now. And also about this Italian author Tommasini, which is enumerating the cities of Fossano and Pinerolo, with a number of parishes, hospitals, and 12 churches and chapels in northern Italy, which Brigid of Kildare is the patron, and which are dedicated in her name. So again, talking about the Irish missionaries, monks, we can definitely find a connection here between Saint Columban, which he was a missionary monk in Northern Ireland. So again, I think through his contribution, then we can find Saint Brigid in there as well. Now again, we have a small reference in Italy in relation to the cities of Fossano, Monrovia, and Saluzzo. When in a time of hail and frost disaster, the blessed Odino Barotti, I don't know too much about him, it's the first time I'm encountering him, choose the protectress as being Saint Brigid. And also Saint Brigid Piacenza, built and personally endowed in honor of the saint by the Irish Donatus, Bishop of Fiesole, being a foundation which has been accorded privileged status for more than 1,100 years, beginning with the 868. And also I've put a link here with a depiction of Saint Brigid as she's healing the blinds by a famous painter Pietro Francesco, which is to be found in this church. And anyway, in 1911, Saint Brigid's was scheduled a national monument in Italy. We're going outside Europe, above the ocean in Australia, and then I found this information about Archbishop of Sydney, Cardinal Moran, which obtained a relic of Saint Brigid for his Brigidine nuns in Sydney, and he was organizing there, a small congregation which is under the St. Brigid protection. And the sisters are now organized in 3 provinces, one for Ireland, the Brigidian sisters, sorry, one for Ireland and two for Australia and New Zealand. So since 1953, the order has been in the United States, where a novitiate was established in San Antonio in 1960. This is according to an author from the United States called Mary Ryan Darcy, and her book, The Saints of Ireland, from 1974. Now, I've included here a tradition of the cloth for St. Brigid's feast, which I think, I don't know if it's still held now these days, when people are used to put a cloth outside their window on the St. Brigid's Eve feast. And this is related to a little story saying that the Druid, who was to marry her mother, Brigid, I hope I'm spelling correctly, recognizes even from the womb that the unborn is a marvel. Ominously for his profession as it turned out, she was born at sunrise, St. Brigid, as her mother was carrying the milk. And the morning dew recalls the dew of the goddess, a pagan symbol of the agricultural world. And then we have this folklorist, which I cannot spell his name here, sorry for this, who noted that this belief survived in the tradition of hanging out a cloth on the eve of Brigid's feast day to collect the dew and thus bringing good fortune to the household. So I think that's why sometimes I found this I couldn't find any other reference about this tradition related to Saint Brigid's feast, apart from this folklorist and his remarks here. So before going to the conclusions, I would like to go to the other document that I have here in relation to the early sources that we have. So I hope you're gonna see now my screen, okay? Can you see this, my sharing screen?
Early sources, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, early sources. So the earliest surviving reference is around 600, according to Dr. Deity Ogain. And the story of the Fortarta Sept, when we have Saint Brigid called the second Mary or another Mary. And then a few decades later, in 633, Phelan MacColman, I have a small little detail on the footnote about him, the King of Leinster, who being connected to the Fortarta by marriage and to the church to a brother who was a bishop of Kildare. He was encouraging the belief and worship of Brigid in order to cement the authority of his own rule. So this is kind of a political movement around Saint Brigid and her cult. So at that time, the Church of Kildare engaged a cleric by the name of Cogitosus to prepare a biography of the saint to support this claim of himself and the Church of Kildare and the region of Kildare being, having an authority in Ireland. So what's most fascinating about this life of Cogitosus, it's that the fact that it doesn't actually contain any biographical material is basically essentially compilation of the various miracles attributed to the saint. So it's kind of the best of what Saint Brigid performed in her life as being called miracles. This is because maybe, as it's stated here in the document, there wasn't any biographical material to be included in the first place. And secondly, the biography was written predominantly to cement the Kildare Church's position and authority against competing religious centers who had saints of their own, which again, I don't believe about competing here, but anyway, probably because of them belonging to, because of those great centers or monasteries in the past belonged to a region which was led up by kings, and they have their own fights. The monastery probably came up to be, you know, some kind of competition, I would say, or competing. Anyway, so yeah, we have the early documents or primary sources. In Latin, Vita Sanctae Brigide, in 3 variants. The earliest one, as I said before, composed by Cogitosus, is so-called the Vita Second or 2. And we have other 2, Vita Prima, and the third one, which are attributed to Colon and Amchad. So we have here an author in person of P. Smith. Again, I've put a note about himself, talking about a manuscript, a very famous one, Rawlinson B502, to be compiled at Kildare. This manuscript, it's among other works, the largest collection of early Irish genealogical material. So again, we can, you know, if it's attributed to Kildare, then it's a very important source to find information about Kildare and about St. Brigid as well. In relation to manuscripts, the earliest reference to Brigid is coming from the Irish Annals, and probably the most important one will be Annals of Ulster. But usually they are probably compiled later on, and they're probably much later documents than the 7th to 8th century life of Brigid, and especially the one of Cogitosus. I've listed here also some primary sources, published primary sources, which you can go through, and they have all the pages and stuff, so you can easily recognize the Martyrology of Donegal, Annals of Ulster, the Martyrology of Angus, the Culdee, of the one of Tala, the Book of Ballymote, which is so important. Okay, and also a list of 9 selected by me, bibliography or further readings that we can have in relation to St. Brigid. Also, a small little section with some online articles, online sources that we can access in order to find information about St. Brigid. I'm going to go back now to the other document, which is the conclusion for my contribution. Okay. So we have here, I found very interesting a quotation from a biographer, Alice Curtain, which is saying that in France there was nothing remotely resembling such feminine initiative until the 17th century, and in England nothing that in the least recalled it until the 19th century. Very astonishing indeed is the discovery that the feminine inspiration which delighted Europe in later centuries down to the modern times was already an accepted feature of the early Irish church. I found this very important because mostly we see in Ireland monks and men, saints or faces or missionary, but scarcely, we can see females such as St. Brigid, and also in the continent as well, along with her, obviously, just to remind about St. Ita and St. Gobnet as well. So it's a very, very important quotation from this biographer, Alice Curtain. And also, as a conclusion, we say that everything that Brigid would ask for the Lord was granted to her at once. For this was her desire to satisfy the poor, to expel every hardship, to spare every miserable man, None was ever more retiring, more modest, more gentle, more humble, more wise, more harmonious than she. She was abstinent, innocent, prayerful, patient. She was glad in God's commandments. She was firm, humble, forgiving, loving. She was a consecrated casket for keeping Christ's body in his blood. She was the temple of God. Her heart and her mind were a throne of rest for the Holy Spirit. She was simple before God. She was compassionate towards the wretched. She was splendid in miracles and marvels. Wherefore her name among created things is dove among birds, vine among trees, sun among stars. She helps everyone who is in strait and danger, and banishes pestilence. She quells the anger and the storm of the sea. She is the prophetess of Christ. She is the queen of the south. She is the Mary of the Gale. And what I've included here, a litany of Saint Brigid, which can be found in a 19th century prayer book entitled St. John's Manual. I could not find it anywhere in the internet or in any other sources, so maybe if anyone can help us with the John Manual. But anyway, it's a litany, very nice to have, probably if you want to pray to St. Brigid. And also just to finalize my contribution here, it's a prayer coming from a Roman breviary, saying like this: O God, who year by year dost cause us to rejoice as upon this day in the feast of thy blessed handmaiden, Maiden Brigid, mercifully grant us help for the sake. The bright ensample of those chastity doth still shed its light upon us. Through our Lord Jesus Christ, thy Son, who lived and reigned with thee in the unity of the Holy Ghost, I will say Spirit here, one God, world without end. Amen. A nice prayer that we can have for Saint Brigid. So this is just, as I said before, a personal collection of information and some quotations, some things that I found interesting about Saint Brigid and her popularity or devotion outside Ireland. Obviously, it's not an official point of view; it's just a personal point of view. So again, I'm sorry about maybe some bad pronunciation and also of the bad connection that I have here, and hopefully this will help a little, being as the first workshop. And if there are, any questions that I can answer, you can, or any suggestion, you can address. So again, I will share these documents, if you agree, on the group, or I'll send it to Catherine, and Catherine, you can look after this. So again, sorry about, I'm nervous as well. I have my emotion by being the first time, in front of many people here gathered.
Thank you, Father. This was great.
Christian. Thank you, Father. I think it's a great beginning for our workshop. And so I have two questions, Father. So the first one is, you mentioned the rule of Saint Brigid, the monastic rule. Does it still exist? Have you ever heard about it?
Never heard about it, Father. The only thing it's mentioned, into the sources that I found is that it was involving mortality of the flesh, but it's also saying that no one could reach Saint Brigid's level in the way that she was the most probably obeyed to this rule. So no references from my side, I couldn't find anything. What I can say that she was very, as I've said in the conclusion, very open to the poor ones. So there are a few little stories about this, saying that so we can take these references into account as being, you know, very to pay attention to the poor ones. At some stage, her father wanted to marry her. The legend is saying that, and then her father took her to be sold to one of the kings of Leinster, and then fortunately, that king was a Christian one, and then when the father and that king had kind of, you know, had to deal with condition and terms of this to be done, one leper came close to where Saint Brigid were staying in the chariot of her father, and asked for something, you know, food or some money or something like that. And Saint Brigid gave to this leper the sword, the royal sword of his father, which was, you know, ornated with very precious stones. And then the second one was that Saint Brigid was she was very close to the animals. So sometimes we can find her between the sheeps, between, you know, taking care of the animals in order to have a proper management, a proper leading of the monastery meaning in a matter of resources, of food resources. So I think those three kind of things that we can find in her legends, we can take into account, but not an accurate reference to the rule of it. I couldn't find. Sorry.
And second question is about, you mentioned the head of Saint Brigid in Lisbon.
Yeah. Yes.
Still there, or so we can go and venerate the relics, or maybe you know.
Well, yeah, the church there is dedicated in Lumiar. It's the small province of Lisbon, which is kind of like a neighborhood or part of Lisbon. Well, the legend is saying that you know, those three knights took the relic, the head of Saint Brigid, in order to reach the Holy Land. But more researches have to be done in order to find out if that's a reality or not, you know, because we all know that they're all buried in Downpatrick, next to the cathedral there, where is a huge large stone, but we don't have any reference, like historical references. Probably there are a few scholarship books there, and they're quite expensive. I was trying to get them, but they're quite expensive in relation to the relics from Ireland. But there's no statement saying that the entire body is to be found out in Downpatrick. So I believe there's a small reality that her head could be in Portugal, because the church there, the chapel or the church there, is dedicated to her, and you know, that could be. But further I don't know, research can be carried on. Fortunately, there's just only a few pure historical references that you can rely on, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe any other questions, Father Christian? Michaela?
Hello. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Father Christian, for the presentation. I want to ask you a question. But before that, I just wanted to share. I don't know if you've seen. I think 3 days ago, or just the day on Saint Brigid's Day, or before that, they said that in Kildare they brought the holy relics. there was a huge procession with the holy relics that they brought back to the cathedral in Kildare, with 3 boys being on 3 horses and reenacting these 3 knights that had taken the relics to Lisbon. So I don't know, I was thinking that maybe it's nice to go there to see and to venerate the holy relics in Kildare if they have been recently brought there. And talking about that, I wanted to ask Father Christian, because he organizes these beautiful trips, NAPSI summer trips. And the last one we had last year was one that also had a stop at St. Brigid's well, and also at Kildare, and it was really, really nice. So I think, can you tell us a bit more about that and why you chose that? Because it was a beautiful experience there, and I'm sure you have some, I don't know, Father, how you chose that place, and both of them, I don't know, the cathedral and the well.
Yeah, I do believe that. Well, the reason I've choose that, so basically, as I don't know if anyone knows, as you're going to Kildare, going out from the motorway, we have the Kildare village on the right hand side, where is the shopping center as well. There we can find the cathedral of St. Brigid and the round tower. But also on the left hand side, we have, I would say, a more simple site where we can find a statue of St. Brigid, very recent, but very older than that, we have St. Brigid's well. So I cannot say from what source I came across, but the source, it was saying that on the left hand side, it was St. Brigid's nuns foundation, and on the right hand side where we found the cathedral and the round tower was the monks. So they were kind of split between obviously split in 2, one being on one side and the other one being on the other side. So they're both for importance. The one on the left hand side where we can find the well, because obviously that's St. Brigid's well, when many have been performed, we can see that by the small little clothes which are hanged to the trees there, as a sign of, as a sign of cure, as a sign of how can I say, as a sign of as a sign of recovery from the sick one. And then on the site of the church where the cathedral is and the round tower, it's because Saint Brigid was after her death, well, the altar was, I don't know, we don't know exactly, because the recent building now, it's quite new. It's not from the beginning, because if we are taking in consideration the name Kildare, the cell of the oak, so the first church, and it's not the first example where the churches has been built at the beginning from wood. It was probably from wood, which in time either was attacked by the Vikings, either suffered from the weather or so, has been destroyed, and then we have more and more foundation. After her death, coming back to it, after her death, Saint Brigid was buried next to the altar in there. So the area is split in 2, and that's why I've choose that destination as being a stop point for our trip. So I don't know if you ever went to the St. Brigid's well. It's not very well marked on the road, so you'll have to put a little bit work with GPS as well, but also there's small little signs there on the road saying St. Brigid's well. But that was the historians are saying that it was the first where the St. Brigid's well is on the left hand side, the first foundation of Kildare, which is to believe to be actually the first monastery, as I've said in the beginning, the first monastery as being in a way that it was organized, because other than that, we can see many of the first disciples of Saint Patrick living as hermits, not organizing a monastery. So that's a very important contribution of Saint Brigid into the monastic life or Christianity of Ireland, to organize such a huge monastery, being split between man and woman. So that was the reason. I don't know if it's answering your question or not, or.
Thank you. No, it was great. I just wanted to share the joy of being there.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we can find St. Bridget's wells everywhere in Ireland, nearly everywhere. Like we went, if we are to talk about this, we went to another summer trip. I don't know if you've been into that, but then we went to visit a site, and after we visited, we decided to have a small little lunch somewhere. But because we were in the middle of a field, we couldn't find anything else apart from a sign saying St. Bridget's Well. And then we went, it was in the middle of the field, surrounded by trees. I can't remember, but if I came across, I'll share that with you in the group there, in the WhatsApp group. But it was such an amazing discovery for us. It was such a big well of St. Bridget in the middle of the field, surrounded by the trees. And it happened by, just, I don't know, by a miracle, I would say. Yeah. Okay. Good. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions, any other contribution maybe, or any other. Again, I didn't on my contribution, I didn't rely too much on her life, because she's a very well-known saint of Ireland, and most of you know most of the details of her, where she was born. And my plan was to bring out some things that probably we don't know too much about her outside Ireland, which is I think they're very important, and they're very to be took in consideration of how how high and big was St. Brigid. You probably know about her consecration, about Saint Mel. We actually celebrated him yesterday, when herself and another few of her nuns were going to live in penitence in order to receive the veil, keeping themselves in virginity, chastity, and to offer their life to Christ. I don't know if you know this legend. And so they went into a place where Saint Mel was to be found, which was a bishop at the moment. And when he said the prayers for the consecration, instead of saying prayer for a virgin to receive the veil, he said the prayer of the consecration of a bishop. And there was another saint there by the name of Saint Michael, and one of his companions of Saint Mel, and he was saying, why have you done this? And he said, the Holy Spirit took this matter out of my hand, and I'm not going to read it. So something like that is very interesting. And ever since the bishops of Kildare had a very important, place into between other monasteries or other monastic sites in Ireland. From that point of view, it's a very interesting. That legend can be found nearly everywhere in relation to her life, Saint Mel, which was a nephew of Saint Patrick, by the way. Yeah, Saint Mel was a nephew. The sister of Saint Patrick. I can't remember her name now. Something with D anyway. Had the 4 sons. If I come across it, I'll tell them. And one of them was Saint Mel.
Okay, Father, thank you very much again for your presentation, and it was very good.
Well, I was trying, it's just the first time for me as well, so I was trying as much as I could.
You were talking about the lepers. I heard that, Leopardstown in Dublin, in fact, it was called Leperstown, and St. Brigid founded the first hospital for the lepers there. And from maybe I don't know if you heard about this, but it's not related to leopards,
No.
but to the lepers, and connected to Brigid as well. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, I never thought about that. Yeah. I never knew that about Saint Brigid.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? I heard you made some references to it in the talk that you gave, Father Christian, but I've heard before about Saint Brigid being originally like a pagan kind of saint, or something to do with the pagans, and then she was kind of co-opted by the Christians. I assume obviously we wouldn't accept that, but it had a bit of reference to some of the pagan symbolism in the talk, so I didn't know if there was any more to that.
Well, yeah, well, I didn't want to actually touch that subject. Yeah, I think it's very, well, it's not complicated, obviously, but sometimes people are, obviously had a goddess in the past called Brigid as well, and she was related to the Celtic tradition, and also to the feast or the seasons that we have in the past, such as Imbolc, which is it's celebrated by, which is mean the giving birth or something like that in Old Irish, I think, which is marking the beginning of a new season. So this goddess was related to a perpetual fire, as I said, which could be found in Kildare, or the place which is now called Kildare, next to this tree asserted to the Druids, this great oak, which was marking that place, that area. So that goddess was believed to be, a goddess of fire and of song as well, of poetry, of song. This is a part of mythology as well, which I'm not really, I'm not very stable onto mythology myself, and my focus is not onto that. But it's obviously I came across, and I was looking into a small little bit research. Yeah, so this is, it's a pre-Christian, time when we calling, I don't know how to spell this. It's called the Tuatha de Danann, otherwise the daughter of the Daga and wife of Bress, where we can find this goddess being, on the main of their religious focus, I would say. which was, you know, worshipped by a number of the Celtic tribes, including, this very important, including a tribe called Brigantes, which is no coincidence related to her name, you know, Brigid. So these tribes are believed to move and settled in the southeast of Ireland during the 1st century. So that's a small little reference that I came across. So she was the goddess was related to harvesting, to richness of nature, to the animals, to coming of the spring and everything to be flourishing again after time, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know if this is answering your question, but as I said, there is, and absolutely, it's not the first example when we have in Christianity that the old ways are, you know, and the new Christianity are kind of collapsing each other, and they are kind of it's not the fact that they're taking from the old, but it's, I think my opinion is it's the fact that, as Saint Patrick did in the same way, it's not something that Christianity is bringing the new thing into the world, which is Christ, which is the resurrection, which is a new way of life. But it's not denying the past in a way, as that they're kind of, it's not collapsing that and then, you know, renewing the whole world. It's a spiritual renewing, but as Saint Patrick did in the same way, he used the Celtic symbols, which one of them was the sun, which was the most element worshipped in the Celtic times, saying that, you know, we can find this reference in his writing saying, this is Christ, the Son of Righteousness. Okay, putting the sign of the sun, which is the circle, onto the cross and creating in this way the Celtic cross. So we can find this reference in his confession writings, and also using the most, you know, found plant, I would say, or the most important symbol now in Ireland, the shamrock, explaining the Holy Trinity. So he was using those because otherwise you can be hardly understood by the pagans to believe in Christ, not using the. I don't think it was the case of Saint Brigid, but depends now of what interest of historians had in order to bring to the light her life and her, you know, her story. Some of them could be mythologists, some of them could be related to really strict history sources, some of them could be spiritual and related to really spiritual facts and stories. But this is nothing to put on the side and say, okay, that's not real. It's something I think it's to be taken in consideration, those kind of mythology. Especially we're talking about the oak there, which was, you know, symbolizing, or it was a symbol for the area, which is the Cura now, you know, where the horse rides are taking place. A very large area, which King of Leinster gave to Saint Brigid. So
yeah, thank you, Father.
Anyway,
yeah.
further I would say research can be done into that, and maybe for the next thing we can, you know, someone can bring a contribution in relation to this mythology part of the goddess Brigid, goddess. Yeah, someone is saying, yeah, the earliest evidence we have a pagan version of Brigid is several centuries later than the real saint lived. Yeah, well, there's so many to discuss here, because you see, we are facing now the period when Saint Brigid and Patrick and Columbkill as well lived. It was the golden era of the time when they had, you know, this amazing turnover of the pagans coming to Christianity. through their intercessions. But then this eventually stopped in the middle of 7th century when the great plague came, the yellow plague came. And then eventually after that, the first raids of the Vikings stopped, the Christianity to be spread. And all of the sources kind of, in a way, have been lost. So that's why the oral tradition is so important to Ireland, because, especially we have the Druids here, and who had this role to transmit the tradition, to transmit the historical facts to the oral poetry or legends and stuff like that. So very few sources, like written sources, very few of them. We had the Vikings, and we have the Normans coming in, and then we have the English invasion. So many happen. That's why we have such a little. But still, the oral tradition is so important, and is still living into us, between us. So
that's something I wanted to ask you about. So we have like sources that are obviously written down from oral tradition.
Yeah.
And when we're looking for Orthodox Irish saints, there's like this gap between into the second millennium and now. But oral tradition obviously continued and was very possibly based on the oral tradition of the first millennium, whether we have evidence of that or not. So do you have anything to say about how to sort of digest that when we're looking for?
Well,
yeah,
I think there are a few studies anyway. I've mentioned them into my document there. Some of them are the annals, even if they are quite late, and also the martyrology as well. They could be late, but they are definitely coming from an early sources that they could have on the hand lost, probably, who knows, in a war or fire, who knows. But I think they are, all of them, they kind of, it's happening the same in the canon of the Holy Scripture, that could be found in manuscripts which has been lost now, but they are kind of quoted in another manuscript and in another one and so on. So that I think, and anyway, Irish monks, they had this talent, I would say, or yeah, I'll call it a very talented passion to copy the texts, to copy text. So I think there are sources. Probably, if someone is asking, well, I need the original source now to have in my hand. So, I don't know. So the Life of Cogitosus, originally written by him, I don't think that can be found. But we have this manuscript that I've mentioned there in England, which is having mostly and mainly and most important information of the Irish saints. Okay, and probably, if we do some more research, we can say about that manuscript is based on another manuscript, which could be the oldest book of Ballymote, so important for us. The book of Duncow as well, which is actually the book of Duncow. It's a gathering of oral tradition, legends, and myths put all together, enclosed in a single book by the monks from Clonmacnoise. So this is what we can trust at the moment. And comparing them, you can see that the truth is somewhere there, even though it's not properly marked by just one book. So that's what I found when I'm taking, some different sources, different books. I can find the same information in many sources, and I think because there were scholars looking after that, priests, historians, as Saint Bede's from England. The truth is under that kind of comparing the sources. But at the end, I think we can rely, and there are very most of them, they are very popular on the internet now. They are all digitalized, and we can have like many manuscripts and the great books being on the internet, so we can have the freedom to compare them. There's definitely a need for someone to put everything together and to create something for our time, because we have access to so many information now, and we don't know exactly. We are sometimes confused, but I think time and access to resources can really bring it up to light, which is, I think, partially has been done in relation to the, let's say, Saint Brigid's life, her monastic site in Kildare. That's, nothing to say. It's not. So obviously, some of them I came across my small little research saying that Saint Brigid was just an imagination in Irish history, Irish Christianity. She was not real, but I wouldn't say that. It's just relating to the other sources now. So I think, yeah, comparing everything we have, we can get to the real thing. And also, even if you look, for example, even if you look at, I'm just thinking about the school of working or ornating metal, it being then chalices, patens, or croziers. There must have been a school for that somewhere. In the same way that we have Book of Kells, and the calligraphy of Book of Kells must have been a base somewhere in order to flourish from there, So I think Kildare, as I've mentioned, has been a source for that, because it was a habit that the inhabitants of the monastery probably had in their ordinary day to be done. That's what I think, at least.
I remember now when I was listening to you, in Georgia, in the pagan time, there was mythological personage, god of raining. So when people wanted to have rain or something, they were prayed to this god. And then when Jewish people came to Georgia the first time, it was when Nabucodonosor destroyed Jerusalem temple, and big community of Jewish people came to Georgia. And they were honoring very much Saint Elijah, and they brought the clock of Saint Elijah to Georgia as well. So we know that Saint Elijah prayed and he stopped rain, or then he again caused rain to come after his prayer. So these two personages in the flock conscious mingled to each other, and this god became Elia, which is the in Georgian version of Elijah. So Georgian god, pagan god, became Elijah. So it doesn't mean that if flock mingled these two different personages to each other, doesn't mean that Elijah was Georgian invention. We know that he is not Georgian invention, he is the biblical personage and he is prophet of the Old Testament church. But before him, there was some mythological personage who had kind of similar qualities. And people's mind, the flock mind, mingled them to each other. So it could happen that in folk from some religion or some religious person could be folklorized, but it does not mean that this person never existed in fact. It's just how it happens sometimes historically,
Absolutely, yeah. That's a very good point. It's a very good point. It's a very, very good point, actually. Thank you for that. Absolutely, it's a good point. Just to add an answer to Column Kill, I was meant to do. I'm going to share this anyway to you, on the group as well. To get some information, there is also a very old poem, which is called the hymn in praise of Saint Brigid, attributed to Saint Brocken. Well, this is having, I think it's having around 105 verses. If you give me a second there, I will actually share that with you if you don't mind. So it's a very old poem or hymn dedicated to Saint Brigid, from where we can get very important information about her life and about her facts. Just give me a second to share that. Well, definitely this is gonna need more research, but that's the hymn here, and it's attributed to Saint Brocken, but Saint Brocken was a disciple of Saint Ultan, you know, and if we were to look after the period where they lived, this is very, very old, you know, we're talking about the 7th century. And obviously the poem, it's nice. I tried to read it. It's a very old literature, which I can barely understand myself as being non-Irish native, but it's containing some very important information. You know, I'm going to share that with you, and you can have a read, and you can see that actually we can find, and I think this poem, because the poem has been transmitted from generation to generation, first of all, to the oral tradition, you know, and then obviously after all it has been put it on paper or manuscript or so. But it's yeah, it's amazing. But anyway, if you want, you know, if you want for yourself to be more based on the, you can have a look on the list that I'm going to share from the document related to the early sources, you know. I also want to share some images if we still have a little bit of time, which I have here. 1 second. Yeah, I actually ordered this book. I don't know if you can see it, of this author, a biographer of Saint Brigid, Alice Curtain. You can find this book on the internet. I think it's very very accurate a book to have. Then the other one will be, just give me a second. The other one will be this one, which also you can find on the internet. It's an edition by publishing house called Charles River Editors, having enclosed altogether the life, legends, and legacy of Saint Brigid. Very nice to have. So this church is to be found. Just 1 second. Okay. I think somewhere in Italy, anyway. Yeah. Okay. And then where I have else, I have an image of Saint Brigid cloak, which is to be found in cathedral, which I want to share with you. Is very interesting. I actually have 2 images of that. One it's in color and one it's in black and white. Oh, it's saying loading, so I think, can you see it now? So
yeah.
So you see there, it's like some kind of a, you know, opening shrine, something like that. And in the middle there, you can see the cloak. It's part of a cloak. And it has been said that, you know, the church at some stage in 1800, I think, it was being vandalized by the traditionalist Frenchmen. And this was to be found underneath the head of, what was her name again? Google, of the Princess Gunelda. She was buried in the cathedral there in Bruges, and the part of the cloak was underneath her head. And whenever they did some restoration, they found this. underneath her head, and they put this to display. Okay, and I have another one here, which you can find also in the article that has been sent over the group there. Just give me 1 second. With more, I'll say more, it's black and white, but it's a bit more accurate description. Okay, which will be this one here. I think you can see it now. So there are two images here. Second one on the right hand side, it's looking like a sheep, curly wool, you know. That's the actual texture of it. And we know that some references to how Saint Brigid was dressed, it's having a white cloak made of sheep wool, white one. So this is a very well place to be visited in Belgium, I would say. And the last thing I want to share with you, just give me 1 second. It's an icon which I found very interesting, which is actually a triptych of Saint Brigid. Yeah, so you can see here it's having, you know, triptych as being the main icon on the main, or the main scene is in the middle, and then it's having like 2 doors opening and closing, where we can find depicted some scenes of her life. And if you look on the, I don't know, there's a small legend that at some stage she was going outside her monastery, trying to, you know, to go to look after the poor people or to heal someone or something like that. And a very, very heavy rain came up, and she was really kind of, you know, wet all over her clothes, and her cloak was really wet. And then when she arrived in the monastery, as you can see on the right hand side door, little door there, the second image from the bottom, we can see her hanging her cloak on a sunbeam to, you know, to dry up. That's a very nice little legend. So probably this is where also the tradition of hanging clothes on St. Brigid's Eve, it's still kept into Irish tradition. And then above, we can see some animals there above her icon in the middle, and also on the left hand side, herself milking the cattle, looking after the sick ones, and then also giving to the poor, you know, gifts, whatever she's having in her hand there. And then on the top there, also herself or some animals. Yeah. And on the right hand side as well, on the top there, I cannot figure out what is there. But underneath that, we can see her raising her hands. And then we have the sun and the wind depicted, probably trying to cool down the weather if it was too windy, or if it was, you know. We also know that she's having a connection with Saint Brendan the Navigator, who came after his trip in order to find the promised land, to give Saint Bridget, you know, veneration. And also we know about Saint Columcille as well in a legend, that when Saint Columcille encountered the monster of the sea, he was asking for Saint Bridget intervention as well. He was praying unto her in order to escape the danger that was coming above him. So this is, I think it's quite old. It's not very, you know, I would say modern, painted or so, as we know in the Byzantine style, but it's another source of, you know, details from her life. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's enough me talking here now.
Thank you very much, Father Christian.
Thank you, Father.
Thank
You're
you,
very welcome.
Catherine, to organizing all the meeting.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. It was
Thank
very
you.
nice,
Thank
actually.
you, Father Michael.
And thank you, Father Mikhail.
So
Thank you.
we're gonna meet again in April. If you have any ideas to contributions, presentation, please let know to Catherine. So.
Okay.